Good morning, folks. This is John Kogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. Thanks, everyone, for giving us some of your very valuable time this morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the webinar, Cloud Computing and SaaS, or Software as a Service, for finance and accounting professionals. As a 20-year veteran of finance and accounting and a 4-time CFO, I know, as you do, that there are few things that are as important in our professional lives as our information systems. In corporate finance, accounting, and related areas, we live with our systems for hours each day interminably, relying on them to give us good data and helping us make decisions that determine how our companies are run and ultimately how they succeed. This event is about giving our listeners some insight into new technologies which are taking the very traditional world of ERP, accounting systems, budgeting and planning systems, and many others to some very new and exciting places. Before we jump into the subject, I'd like to thank our sponsors who have made it possible for Performative to bring you this, as all of our programs, completely for free. They are NetSuite, Adaptive Planning, Sungard, MyDials, Zora, and Habib Arigeti and Win, also known as HAW. All of these companies are steeped in these new technologies and how to deliver them. So we're very fortunate to have such a great group of folks helping us out today. Today we will hear brief presentations from 3 speakers, Glenn Simons, Paul Turner, and Rob Hull. And then Dan Schrader will join us for the panel discussion where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We have an awful lot of information to squeeze in today, so we're going to move as quickly as we can and get you guys as much information as possible. We can't promise to get to all of the information that these topics deserve because there's simply too much to cover in this short period of time, but we're going to do our level best. And we would encourage, as people are listening, that you ask questions for the panel when we get to the panel discussion. In your GoToWebinar control panel, you will see a question area. Feel free to ask questions anytime during the presentation. We are going to hold off on answering the questions until we get to the panel discussion towards the end. And we may not get all of the questions answered today, but the questions that we don't get answered, we will make sure we get you, the questioner, an answer either directly or online, where we typically repost these questions and invite the speakers to answer them directly in our online forums. For those who are wondering, we will send out soft copies of all of the presentations to all of today's attendees, so you don't have to take copious notes as we're going. You will get the full presentations typically within 24 hours. We're also offering CPE credits for the CPAs in today's audience. If you have any questions about the CPE credits or how you get the credits, et cetera, please contact Tanya Walsh in our office, and in the chat area of your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see Tanya's email address. You'll also see her email address on one of the last slides of today's presentation. Okay, that's more than enough for me. At this point, I'd love to get this kicked off. We're going to start with Glenn Simons, who's a solutions specialist at Sungard Availability Services. Glenn has over 30 years of experience in telecommunications, IT services, IT system architectures, and IT security services. Glenn's prior positions include Senior Director of Security and Data Center Services for Siemens IT Solutions and Services, Manager of Security Engineering Support for Counterpane, Director of Engineering Technical Support for Telenesis, and Senior Engineer for Lucent Bell Labs Software. An amazing background and a perfect person to help us get up to speed on the cloud and SaaS. Glenn, please take it away.
Sure. Okay, so basically I'll start out talking, thanks John, appreciate the intro. I thought I'd start out talking about just the basic IT budgets today. And basically a lot of folks are looking at just balancing cost and risk and growth to their budgets. The quote there from Gartner is pretty much talking about 2011 being somewhat of a 0% growth. I'm glad to say that I say that's slightly wrong. We do see a slight uptick in activity, and right now a lot of clients are coming to Sungard and really asking about how cloud may play in their strategy going forward, because they're looking at renewals or refreshes in equipment or new software deployments to probably improve their business. So we're getting a lot of questions around cloud computing right now. next would be the IT spend piece of the budget to talk about. And basically, in IT spend, Gardner's talking about 63% of the IT spend is administration and support, which is a large sum of money. So you can see why clients are looking at in that realm. The other area would be software development is pretty heavy too, at about the 20% range. And so clients are looking a way to kind of get at those costs for services, and cloud is a way to do that. So options for reducing spend, basically your options would be either to look internally or to look externally at ways to reduce your spend through software as a service. Owning versus software as a service, there's a huge difference in implementation and customization. Basically, you can see there roughly about 19% savings in the software as a service realm. We see that all over the map as far as what folks are looking at in software as a service. Initially, CRM kind of carried the day, but a lot of folks are looking at back office applications, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So why does software as a service cost less? And basically, it's support software. Basically, the support of a large application or a number of applications is very expensive nowadays. The other area would be the support of the users in the field. And basically, the folks that are building these software as a service models have found a pretty good way to support field users, make adjustments as possible, and support the software on an ongoing basis so that the client or the person purchasing the services aren't kind of labored with those kind of costs. So thus the huge interest in software as a service. The hidden costs for owning software, I guess, I don't think they're too hidden, but some of the hidden costs would be time and actually the compute infrastructure. So basically, the application, compute, storage, networking infrastructure, a huge cost to kind of show that for development, test, and Q&A. And basically, we're getting a lot of requests also from clients to look at that whole development, test, and QA environment as a cloud offering for infrastructure as a service to run software on it. So I think there's a huge interest in clients not wanting to own that piece of the infrastructure, software or hardware, for development and test. And that's kind of a lead-in for infrastructure as a service. So infrastructure as a service is kind of the foundation for offering software. Basically, that's the basic compute infrastructure, the storage infrastructure, the network, all the things required to kind of operate the software. Basically, that kind of investment takes quite a bit of time to provision, to support the applications, to get the right people trained, the appropriate hardware and software required to work together and be integrated. A lot of administrative work, a lot of high expensive investments required to make that happen. And also, if you have a disaster recovery in mind, pretty high expense to get into a lower recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives in disaster recovery. Cloud benefits. So I guess to kind of summarize some of the benefits again, the elimination of CapEx. Don't have to own it to use the services. Increased agility. Oftentimes, people are looking for a lot faster deployment options than they have if they have to build it themselves, typically from weeks and months down to days. So there's quite a bit of increased agility there. Faster return on investment. Folks are looking for a lot faster return on investment for investing in IT nowadays. And basically, if you're a 3 or 5 year return on investment plan, I don't think people will get too excited about it. So I think you have to be more aggressive nowadays in that area. And then the IT expertise. As everyone knows, the technologies keep changing, and especially in the cloud environment, they're getting a little bit more complex under the covers. And I think to keep your own internal staff to deal with that expertise is not an easy thing nowadays. It's kind of challenging. Speaking of challenges, there are some challenges in the security realm for cloud services. And one of those challenges is basically the security of the information that's stored. I guess one of the biggest issues we kind of wrestle with at Sungard is data at rest. People are very concerned over commingling data at rest and how to kind of make sure that that's secured. And there's ways you can do that through encryption and other means, but basically that's number one priority that people kind of look at. Data privacy, that kind of gets at that data at rest piece. Performance, how can I make sure that some other client in this infrastructure, this pooled infrastructure, is not going to hurt me or do something for my performance of my application that I'm using. Availability and reliability is another key piece. I think early on, some of the early software providers were kind of challenged. They had some issues as far as availability. I think most of them have kind of wrestled those to the ground, but another key concern. Interoperability is another one. I guess the whole trick to software as a service or even infrastructure as a service is the interoperability and integration and how quickly can it be deployed, how people are trained, how it may interoperate with other applications you currently have. So that's one piece that needs to be addressed pretty straightforward. Compliance. Compliance is probably one of the key things I hear a lot about because of my security background, I think. But a lot of folks have standards that they have to meet, like PCI version 1.2, or they have a COVID standard they need to meet, or internal audit standard. So typically those are huge concerns for clients, so they need to be addressed. And last but not least would be governance. One key thing about cloud computing is that you're going to have to like your service provider because you're going to be talking to them a lot, and they're kind of wrapping you in their service offerings. So the governance of how that operates, how they respond to your requests, what can be customized, can't be customized, how they respond to new requirements are pretty key pieces, and I think you need to be apprised of how governance is going to work in that environment. SLAs is another key piece, basic performance guarantees and metrics, and I see that getting better and better as more products come out of the gate, measuring performance from a user perspective, for example, looking at how backups are done and that kind of thing. Cloud lock-in, I guess the thing to note here is that there are no key standards across the board for all the cloud providers. They may have a default virtual engine that they use or hypervisor they use, and by nature that may make them compatible. But a lot of them do services differently. They integrate differently, orchestrate those services differently. So I think lock-in is something to be apprised of to make sure that you can move to another provider if you need to. And finally, software licensing. Basically, you don't have to own the software, but licensing is a concern. Those have had the wonderful, the joy of working with Microsoft licensing agreements and how that may apply to different virtual infrastructures. There are some challenges there, so you need to know where you're going. On to the recession and accelerated adoption. Basically, we did see a huge kind of a bump in forecasts for people going to cloud infrastructure software as a service revenue, and that bump was about $8.4 billion right after the July 2008 crisis. So more and more companies are looking at ways to kind of get out of that business and look for an alternative means. Also, there was a lot of wireless technology provided too. That's probably a different subject, but that also was kind of post price in the budget. So basically, move on to the next, the cloud spend in 2009. So basically, the cloud spend is pretty much circled around content and collaboration. Those of you who know about social networking, a lot of folks, a huge explosion in that. CRM sales are in the 30% range. Then you see ERP at about 16%. So there's some factors that kind of cause that huge explosion in growth, especially in the communications part of that puzzle. And I guess the reason for that, what we're seeing is a lot of mobile devices are driving that cloud demand. Basically, a lot of the shadow IT that was in the background before, and shadow IT, I mean folks using, let's say, Google email instead of a corporate email and changing and kind of moving information back and forth through those kind of accounts to do what they wanted to do. You saw a huge influx of portable cell phones doing email because the users are pretty much demanding it. iPads are the latest device that I'm seeing more and more of those in meetings every day. So this whole piece of people using and bridging what they do in their private life with how they do work is being accelerated. I guess the other piece of that that's accelerating is the application stores. These app stores for the iPhone, app stores for Android, and things of that nature. Much smaller applications, a lot easier to deploy, so a lot smaller, take up a lot less room, very economical, and pretty much if you've been to an iPhone app store, you'll see a pretty wide variety of apps out there that you could use in your work every day. So I think that's another movement that's kind of making this cloud explosion that we're seeing around us. Cloud ecosystem. So basically, software as a service is what I've been kind of talking about a little bit here. Some of the key players there, Salesforce.com, NetSuite, one of our sponsors, very big in that area. Easy for folks to deploy, full range of product offerings there, and becoming probably the most mature of the offerings out there right now. Platform as a service, a lot of new activity in there. Windows Azure probably gets a lot of press lately in Google Apps, but a lot of folks are moving to a platform to run their applications on that are cloud friendly. And then infrastructure as a service, which I mentioned before, with Amazon Web Services. Sungard's playing in that area too, and a number of other folks, Rackspace and Terramark, a number of other folks play in the infrastructure as a service. Yet, the one thing I'd say about those different areas, they're not so clean cut. I know some folks offer platform as part of their software as a service, and also some infrastructure as a service folks kind of wrap themselves around platforms too. So you have to be careful about these dividing lines sometimes. They get a little blurry. The attractive cloud services, CRM, financials. You just saw a recent poll that was, or review that was done by IDC and I believe VMware, and they were showing the CRM piece to be about 34% of an increase in folks looking for CRM financials and expense management in the cloud. Collaboration for that same review was talking about 43%. This was done in January of 2011, so it's relatively new. I apologize for not getting it into this deck. Also, development test Q&A. We get lots of folks looking to kind of get that as a service and not having to support that infrastructure. And that's roughly about 26% of the growth that's out there. So a lot of activity in this range. Another thing, just of note, I noticed that one of the catalog service providers that I worked with before NewScale was recently acquired by Cisco. So you can see a lot of folks realizing that this is the future, more to play, and acquiring companies like that. So the forecast, cloud market forecast is bright. Basically, right now the 500-pound gorilla in the room is software as a service with about $21 billion. Platform as a service by 2012 will grow to $9 billion, and then infrastructure as a service about $2 billion. So those are huge numbers, a lot of growth, 30 billion plus by 2012. So needless to say, it's an exciting place to be in. I know I'm having a lot of fun talking to clients out there looking at these options, and I do think that that's the way IT is headed in the future. So we're going to see more and more of it. With that, I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much, Glenn. That was an awful lot of information to wedge in there, and very well done. We have gotten some questions which we'll work on addressing during the panel, and some of them we'll probably tackle online as well, because it's an awful lot of lingo there to come up to speed on, and a lot of data behind those acronyms. So we'll work on that. So thank you, Glenn. Next, we will move to Paul Turner, Senior Director, Product Marketing at NetSuite. Paul has implemented a defined strategy for financial software applications for the past 15 years in senior product strategy, product management, software implementation, and channel roles. Paul is currently Senior Director, at NetSuite. Prior to NetSuite, at Hyperion, which is now part of Oracle, he was responsible for its financial consolidation, budgeting, planning, and business intelligence, or BI technology strategy, and roadmap. He has also worked on a number of financial planning, analytics, and reporting implementations at Fortune 500 companies. Paul, please take it away.
Hey, thanks very much, John, and thanks, Glenn, for that kind of background on cloud computing. Actually, my plan for today was to take you very briefly through some of the drivers for moving financials to the cloud. You may be familiar with cloud computing being used, in the front office, in sales and service, but increasingly what's happening is cloud computing is coming to the back office. So I speak to about 2 or 3 businesses a week that have moved their accounting systems to the cloud. And similar drivers come up over and over again. So I'm going to take you through some of those, as well as some survey data as well. We surveyed with the IMA, Institute of Management Accountants, and just asked them some of their perceived benefits of cloud, as well as some of their frustrations with existing systems. I'm going to share those with you today. So just a little bit of background, and Glenn shared some similar data with you here. So in terms of some of the forecast data, so basically cloud computing is cloud ERP, cloud financials, growing about 2.5 times the rate of on-premise systems. So I'm going to explore some of those drivers. So businesses are increasingly looking at running their financial systems as a service, as a web-based application, paying as they go, and being able to access the application from anywhere, versus running their systems in-house and managing themselves. Another kind of area here is Gartner actually recently surveyed a pretty broad number of finance execs across a wide range of kind of business sizes, and they found that basically web-based software as a service, or cloud computing, obviously goes for a number of different names, it was the #1 technology affecting finance organizations. So non-analytics, non-business intelligence, not compliance tools, software as a service. So very, very high on the finance organization's agenda. And once again, and Forrester asked about 54% of execs were planning or interested in cloud. So pretty much a clean sweep across all of the analysts, very high on the agenda. Now, going to move into some of the drivers behind this, and this is something that comes up over and over again. A typical IT budget. If you look at most medium-sized businesses or a small business, or in many cases an enterprise as well, a huge amount of the budget is typically spent on maintenance. One Gartner study found that over 90% of an IT budget is spent just simply on maintenance. That's patches, upgrades, backups, ensuring uptime, middleware, infrastructure, just keeping the applications running. Less than 10% spent on delivering on the organization's business needs, whether it's building out workflows, building out reports, supporting new applications, so supporting the needs of the business. So what's happened is that over time, as businesses have added more applications, as they've added more infrastructure, increasingly the IT budget has just been consumed with just simply the ops side of things rather than the innovation side of things. The other thing that Aberdeen found, which is I think a common frustration with finance organizations, is many are running on old versions of their ERP system. I'd invite you to think, what version of your ERP that you're running on. Many businesses are running Oracle Financials, for example, experience version log when they customize the application. Or if you're running things like Dynamics Now, for example, it's very easy to customize the application and very hard to move up after that. So what you typically find is that, and also with each incremental version, often there's not enough business value with each incremental version to move up. So typically what happens is most businesses only move up when the vendor actually turns off support for that version, and then you're forced to move up to the latest version, and it's a multi-million-dollar effort. So many finance departments are contending with software that's 2, 3 versions behind what the current shipping version is. And so what's kind of generally happened is if you look at the kind of today's challenges faced by finance organizations, whether you've got things like some of the latest revenue recognition rules, things like new billing models, the changes to subscription revenue. Often a lot of the accounting systems they're running, that are 3 or 4 versions old, aren't designed to really kind of meet some of the new kind of challenges facing a finance organization, whether the organization is more distributed now than they were previously. Maybe they're working from home. They've got a great accounts receivable clerk that wants to log in from their remote office and contribute. They're being limited by their existing Windows-based systems. Maybe supporting multiple channels. You've got a web channel and a direct sales channel. Increasingly hard to integrate your existing systems with those multiple channels. Or maybe if you're launching new subsidiaries, for example, maybe getting to China, for example. It's increasingly hard for the existing ERP system to extend into different parts of the business. So what basically net is a mismatch between the aging existing systems that are hard to upgrade, hard to keep pace, and the needs of the finance organization. So in terms of cloud computing, so in a nutshell, and this is kind of the things that come over and over again when I speak to finance organizations that have made the move to the cloud. What does cloud ERP mean for the finance organization? Well, a number of different areas. I'm going to say, and these aren't in priority order by any means, just kind of a quick swag. One of the areas is really keeping abreast of the latest accounting and regulatory changes. It's almost analogous to TurboTax Online, right? When you use TurboTax Online, you automatically get all the latest updates, and if there's a late-breaking change in the tax regulations, it's automatically rolled to that version you're using. You can see it happen. And it's the same thing with cloud-based ERP. I mean, for example, with a cloud-based application supporting the latest revenue recognition rules, I mentioned 0801 and 0903, a cloud-based ERP provider can roll that new functionality to the cloud system. Okay, so to support estimated selling prices and different revenue allocations, those kind of areas. Whereas if you're running an on-premise ERP, you could either apply a patch, typically not a patch, more typically a major upgrade of the system to support that. So if you look at Oracle Financials or an SAP, it's typically going to be a major upgrade to support those latest Rev Rec rules, and that's typically not in time for the finance organization to get the benefits. Increasingly support a distributed global organization. Glenn touched on this, which is increasingly organizations are becoming, run in different locations. You might have even an outsourced finance organization. You may have employees that are relocated. And cloud ERP with a web-based application that is easy to access as Amazon or Gmail makes it much easier to support remote employees, and even have employees log in from home using their personal machines and approving sales orders or reviewing management reports from home. It's a big driver for reallocating IT budget from maintenance innovation. So you recall that 90% chart a little bit earlier on. You're able to reallocate that budget. Automate upgrades, eliminate wasted maintenance, so benefit from automate upgrades, as well as economies of scale for security and data management. Often, it comes up as a concern about security and data management with cloud. However, if you look at typically the security certifications and the amount of security personnel and things such as offsite backups and redundant data centers that you get with a cloud solution, typically it's a lot higher end than you can realistically achieve yourself internally. And finally, many analytics, many cloud solutions are typically much more easy to integrate. They're basically service-oriented architectures, web services. They have online marketplaces with prepackaged integrations or the cloud and on-premise systems. Typically easier to integrate, or maybe integrating with eBay or Amazon or your vendor systems. Typically, their architectures are more easier to integrate than older on-premise systems. And often they ship with more next-generation features, such as more tightly integrated analytics, for example. So actually, we surveyed the IMA. Actually, we have an updated survey of this, but this is from late last year. We surveyed about 800 finance professionals from the IMA, and we actually asked them what are some of their perspectives on cloud ERP. What do they see as some of the key benefits? Cost of ownership. Glenn touched on that a moment ago, as well as access data from any time, anywhere, as well as the ability to more integrate it tightly with the business and streamline business processes. These are some of the key drivers that they communicated. And just to give you an idea on the cost side of things, this is actually a study with cloud versus solution like Dynamics Great Plains together with CRM. Typically, and this is a study from Hurwitz based on a number of customer case studies, and what they found is the dramatic reduction in IT headcount costs. Typically, what we find is that basically the IT headcount are able to be reallocated to more strategic activities. For example, managing business process or implementing workflows on the reports, rather than just be running the disks and keeping the stuff backed up. Reduction in training costs. In terms of the infrastructure costs, this is server-based infrastructure, so a complete elimination of database, middleware, web servers, physical servers. So a significant reduction in infrastructure, and it resulted in a kind of 4-year TCO of about 50%. And so this is either savings you can plow back, into the business, or just take the bottom line. So some significant savings to the business. The other area, from the survey in terms of a distributed finance organization. So actually, we surveyed the IMA again, and actually they counted this as one of the number one benefit of cloud computing. Often when I speak to businesses about a year after they've been running cloud, this is actually a very big driver for a cloud-based application. If you offshored your finance organization, if you're going through distributed financial planning activities with people planning from different locations, for example, maybe you've got home workers, maybe you've got that great accounts receivable class that's relocated, and you want to retain them and have them log into the application, everyone's operating from the same single version of the truth. Everyone can log into the application. They have to contend with VPN connections or Citrix clients, or have to install a desktop on their machine. They don't have to worry about that stuff. They can access the application securely through a web browser. It makes a big difference to how you can support the organization. I spoke to actually one person recently. Basically, they have their support organization in the Philippines, their accounting organization in India, and they have some operations in San Francisco. And he stated basically that they couldn't run their business without in the cloud because they were so distributed. Just kind of moving on. Just the other area is just in terms of the business running better sort of thing. So by virtue of providing a more easy to integrate system as well as improve reporting, you get some pretty substantial benefits. So these are just a sample of some businesses that are running their applications, their ERP in the cloud. So Nomis Solutions, software company, cut their close time in half. SuccessFactors, public company, saving about $250,000 annually by moving to the cloud. SolarWinds, interesting example, another public company, able to roll out cloud ERP very, very quickly to their subsidiaries rather than requiring local IT resources. They can roll a cloud ERP system much more fast, much more quickly, as well as just general employee productivity. Just going to jump in quickly to concerns. So, it's a common concern is security. So there was a concern raised by the IMA as well as customization and ownership and reliability. These are typical concerns with cloud-based applications. So what do these kind of look like under the with some factoids here. So just some examples. A typical cloud vendor is going to provide a service level commitment. At NetSuite, we provide a 99.5% SLC, and what we'll do is provide a credit back if we don't meet that commitment. When was the last time you had that from your IT department? Uptime, a typical cloud vendor, they will basically provide their uptime publicly. At NetSuite, ours is 99.98%. That actually translates to 8 minutes a month of downtime. So much higher than you could probably expect with your on-premise system. Security, the same as online banking, 128-bit security. And I know we're going to touch a little bit on this later on, but SaaS 70 Type 2 compliance in terms of accelerating your kind of audit times, achieving that level of compliance, but also very rigid security certifications like PCI DSS certification, PCI Level 2 certifications. So it's very important that when you look at a cloud vendor, you quiz them on their certifications and make sure they've got that level of security personnel, data management, stewardship, and certification by the systems. Automated upgrades, even with customization. So you make customizations to your application with a cloud system, but if it's done right, you don't get version lock. Okay, so it's a big difference between multi-tenant and cloud and hosted systems. With a multi-tenant application, when you make changes to the application, your customizations are going to typically upgrade automatically. And also maintenance per week. So just about 20 minutes of maintenance per week, off hours, and this is just simply applying, latest upgrades, patches, and that kind of stuff. Stuff that your IT department would otherwise have to do, applied automatically. Quick swag on this is that what we're seeing is more enterprises are moving to the cloud. So it started with small to medium-sized businesses. Big businesses are now seeing the value and switching to the cloud. So SAP move at a Kasai, major Japanese conglomerates, their Americas division, went from SAP to cloud, went from 3% of IT spend as a percent of revenue to 0.1%. Clear Choice, they had 92 instances of Great Plains, hard to believe, horrible consolidation experience, financial consolidation experience, went to one instance of a cloud-based ERP. Red Bill, they switched from SAP R3 and saved about $350,000 annually. So larger businesses increasing the benefits. So just to kind of finish up is what you should look for in a cloud-based ERP. Just some basic questions you should ask. And Dennett Howlett actually recently blogged on these as well. Question the vendor's viability. Make sure the vendor is profitable, has strong cash reserves, and has a strong track record. Strong track record of uptime, availability. drill into their service level commitments. What is the credit policy in terms of them meet the service level commitment? Is the service level commitment all hours or just business hours? Are they transparent? Do they have an availability section on the website showing their uptime? Drill into the certifications, SaaS Type 2, PCI DSS compliance, EU US Safe Harbor compliance, drill into the level of certifications they have. They understand if it's hosted or a true cloud solution, a multi-tenant solution, typically be much easier to customize the application. It's very, very easy to deploy cloud applications, and so you can very quickly end up with cloud proliferation across your business. So it's important to build a cloud strategy and not end up with multiple cloud kind of application silos. So understand what the vendor is and how they're going to grow with your business. And obviously, you need to make sure it has a good customization layer as well, that you can write workflows, scripts, reports, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope you give a quick background there, and then I'm going to pass it back to John.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Once again, a lot of information, very well delivered, and appreciate that. I just want to remind folks very quickly that we will be sending out soft copies of the presentation. I've seen a couple questions about that, so that will be forthcoming. We usually get those out in the 24 hours after the presentation. Please feel free to continue asking questions. We've got a lot of questions already in queue, and any of these questions that we don't get to later, we will make sure get answered either directly with you or on Performative for everyone to benefit from. Next up, I'd like to introduce Rob Hull. Rob is the founder and CFO of Adaptive Planning. Rob has over 20 years of executive and financial management experience. He is currently CFO and VP of Client Services for Adaptive Planning, a company he founded to provide folks like himself, CFOs, with SaaS-based solutions for budgeting, forecasting, and reporting. Rob has significant experience both in leading corporate planning and reporting as CFO and in contributing to the planning process as an operational manager. Prior to founding Adaptive Planning, Rob served as CEO of Chemtracker and a CFO for a number of technology companies. Rob, please go ahead.
Great. Thanks very much, John. I think in the interest of time, maybe what I'll do here is I'm going to skip forward through a couple slides, jump kind of into this. I'm here to, you've gotten a lot of great information already from the previous panelists. I'm here to give you a little bit of sort of a perspective as a peer. As a CFO, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience as a CFO, and then again what we do as a company, both from a SaaS vendor perspective, but really as a CFO, what we use SaaS applications for and how that impacts me and my daily business and my team's business. So first, a little background just on starting Adaptive Planning, sort of why jump into software as a service as a whole. Well, as a CFO, really my frustration was around the whole performance management space for me. My planning, my reporting, Excel was very inefficient. It was very uncollaborative. Hyperion, Cognos, great solutions on-premise, but very expensive, very complex. Mid-sized business tends to have a bit of a hard time jumping into those applications. And what I'd seen were a lot of failed on-premise installations, both with CRM, with various business intelligence applications, and some real success with, in this particular case, with Salesforce as an application that came in quickly into the organization, no IT, very well received and very well adopted, and really began to look at performance management, at planning, reporting, analytics as a perfect fit for software as a service. And why is that? Well, really, it's a part of the business that's very dynamic. It's very distributed, a lot of people contributing to it. As a finance organization, what you're looking for in that particular application is ease of use, ease of implementation, and really the ability for finance to be in control and not be dependent upon IT for adding elements to your data warehouse, or changing your star schema, or trying to connect various things for you. And ultimately, the solution's got to be affordable for you as well. And so all of those things really drew me towards software as a service as the means of starting a planning company. Now, when you think about how to help finance, Paul's talked a little bit about helping finance from the accounting and ERP side of it. Well, I'll talk a little bit about how finance can be helped with SaaS applications from performance management, from the planning, reporting, analytics, budgeting, forecasting side. And what you need to consider is, again, that's a very collaborative process. You've got a lot of business units in there. You may have distributed geographic entities. What you'd like to have is the ability to allow all of them to participate in this process in a very collaborative way, but also to be able to customize and tailor their view of the information so that what they see, for example, in a planning template is specific to their geography. Maybe it's in their local language, specific to their functional part of the organization. So they're seeing just expense accounts, or they're seeing revenue accounts that are relevant to where they fit within the organization. You can also, as a result of all of this, really vastly improve cycle time by automating consolidation. So we talk to a lot of clients that have spent a large amount of time just in the monthly consolidation process and in the ongoing consolidation process around forecasting and planning. So really reducing that through SaaS planning applications is critical, certainly a valuable benefit. Getting data from a variety of sources. Paul mentioned a little bit about integration and you know, how can you pull information from those source systems that are critical to your business. Well, in a SaaS environment, you're able to not only pull data from other on-premise applications, but also very quickly connect to other software as a service applications. So in our case with adaptive planning, we've created an environment where I can connect to NetSuite quite easily. I'm actually integrated tightly between adaptive planning and NetSuite, but I can also connect and pull data from Salesforce, from my OpenAir system, from my HRIS system. So I've got a lot of data being connected, integrated, and pulled into then a series of custom dashboards, my monthly reporting that's both financial and operational. And it also allows me to then get in and do a lot more frequent forecasting and scenario analysis. So I'm able to, you know, over the last couple of years with all of the uncertainty, I'm able to run financial forecasts. I'm able to look at new scenarios, evaluate either new products or new territories or the impact of continued uncertainty in the economy. I'm able to do that very rapidly, and I can do that rapidly not only with my finance team, but distributed across my entire management team, regardless of geographically where they are. I don't have spreadsheets that I need to send around to everyone. I've simply got a new version that I've created, and I've got everyone logging in through their browser to then see and to both see that information as well as to input and contribute to the overall current forecast or scenario. And ultimately, it's about putting finance in control. I think one of the key messages that hopefully you take away today about SaaS applications is that you're really not beholden then to IT. So implementations can be rapid, configuration can be done without IT knowledge, without a lot of consultants coming in to help you do that all the time. Paul talked about updating, and I can speak from specific experience with NetSuite, for example. NetSuite coming out with new functionality over time, new, for example, revenue recognition modules that have helped me with 081 and revenue recognition. That was something that I was able to take advantage of with no IT involvement and really move my business forward, reduce the amount of time my team spends on RevRec every month, and really see a rapid time to benefit from that particular feature and functionality. So really able to do more with less resource over time. Now, I guess I thought it would be helpful to give you a sense again as a peer a little bit about what applications are we using. Now, we not only provide software as a service applications here for performance management, planning, reporting, budgeting, forecasting, but we use a whole ecosystem of software as a service applications. NetSuite runs our business. We run NetSuite for all of our accounting. We run NetSuite for professional services automation with their OpenAir product. We're tightly integrated with adaptive planning, so in all parts of the organization, I'm looking at ongoing reporting, ongoing forecasting and analysis in each of those functional areas through adaptive planning. I'm also tightly integrated with Salesforce on my front office side for CRM and SFA, with Eloqua. We use a lot of WebEx. I know we're using GoToMeeting here, but we're very big WebEx users. So we can work remotely as a team and engage with clients and customers remotely quite interactively as well. And then earlier we talked a little bit about sort of some of the cloud-based value for even from a development perspective, and we've seen that as well. We use a variety of cloud-based or SaaS-based development tools, as well as things like testing and disaster recovery that are happening in the cloud. So a whole ecosystem that has vastly improved efficiency and allows us to manage our business very well with a lot fewer resources. So ultimately, if I came back and said, well, really, what are the benefits of SaaS to you? Again, I think that not being beholden to IT is a very big thing for us. So in effect, our organization runs without our IT team needing to spend any time on internal applications. Their focus is on our hosting operations and not on our internal operations, and that's a very powerful statement to make. Rapid deployment. Not only is adaptive planning something that we can deploy rapidly, but each of the other applications that we've brought up and gone live with, from NetSuite to Salesforce to Eloqua, all done in a matter of a short period of weeks to implement, not months. I talk to clients that are doing large ERP implementations or a Hyperion or Cognos implementation, and they're months into it, and they still haven't begun to get value out of it. That's tough. I think the rapid value proposition from SaaS applications, the ability to get started quickly, to implement over time more and more things, is very valuable. I think the other thing you should be thinking about is your ability to try it before you buy it. There's nothing for you to go and install, so it's very easy for SaaS vendors to allow you to try it out. Use a free trial, get in and see it, work with it a bit, make sure it fits and works for you and for your organization. And in a lot of cases, those vendors will then allow you to take that work that you've done in trialing and move it to production when you're ready to purchase. So you haven't lost any time by testing it out. You've actually really started your implementation without knowing that you've done it. So there's a lot of benefit there to trying before you buy and then moving into production. And then finally, again, and the other speakers have talked a little bit about this, but the fact that SaaS applications really enable a very highly collaborative, very distributed organization to interact well. So I've even been accessing SaaS applications now on planes with Wi-Fi. We've got clients around the globe that are working overnight in one location and seeing the results of that in another the next day. So data moving in real time across the globe, across all of the organization. And really what that means is, as an organization, you're going to spend a lot less time managing data. I think the perfect example here is really the planning example. People that are planning in Excel, I'd say a good 60% of their time is spent just managing the data, just managing the spreadsheets being sent back and forth, and the consolidation of that data into one single view, managing who's doing what and where they are in that process. You can eliminate all of that by moving to a SaaS-based application. A couple other thoughts here. Strong financial value proposition. So let's see if we can get the slide to move with us. All right. So a couple other quick ones. Again, strong value proposition. We've talked a lot about this already. Good cost of ownership. Integrations are possible. I think that's one thing I just want to reiterate. Good integration both with SaaS to on-premise and SaaS to other SaaS applications. And as the other speakers have talked about, SaaS vendors are very focused on security and availability. It's our business. Not only are we focused on security and availability, but we're focused on client satisfaction. So think about SaaS applications as we're aligned. A SaaS vendor is very aligned with you as a client, because if you're not happy, you're going to move on quite quickly it's easy for you to get out of that application. Now, common concerns, I think the other vendors, the other speakers have talked a little bit about this, but again, functionality, try it before you buy it. A lot of talk already about security, availability and uptime, and again, ongoing performance. So I'm going to just kind of conclude here with, I think, a couple takeaways. Again, with SaaS applications, as a CFO, what I've really found is the ability to really rapidly implement business solutions, reducing my dependency or any roadblocks that I commonly see in IT getting into that, that process, that rollout. Very good total cost of ownership, excellent collaboration in all aspects, in all areas of my business, and very, very good information sharing now across the organization that's really brought high user satisfaction levels across our internal organization. So with that, John, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, Rob. That was great. A lot of great information once again and great insight. It's always nice to have someone who's living right in the midst of all this technology tell us a little bit more about it. And now we're going to get to the panel and Q&A, and we're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can. We don't have a heck of a lot of time. But first, I'd like to introduce our fourth expert, Dan Schrader, who's a partner with Habib, Arrighetti & Wynn, or HAW. Dan is the partner in charge of HAW's IT audit and assurance services practice. He has over 20 years of experience in IT risk management functions and over 9 years leading IT audit and assurance functions at leading CPA firms. Dan is actively involved in delivery and practice development in several areas, including SaaS 70 and SSAE 16, security and privacy risk management, and IT governance. Dan is the chairperson of the AICPA Information Technology Executive Committee. Dan, welcome and thank you very much for joining us this morning. And the first question straight to you. When people are looking at cloud and SaaS providers, there are the established folks, but there's a lot of new players around, and I think these companies want to gain some comfort with the stability of the systems, the processes and procedures, and the operations of these service providers. Looking at a SaaS 70 or now more upcoming, I should say, an SSAE 16 report, is that something you can use as a customer to gain comfort in your service provider? How effective is that?
Thank you, John. Great question. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Great question. It's very relevant. Some of you may know that SaaS 70 is being phased out for all intents and purposes. It's, let's just say this, it's effectively replaced. The official date is June 15 of this year. It's replaced by SSAE 16, which is a part of a broader framework called Service Organization Controls. But real quickly, for a number of years now, it's been commonly interpreted or thought that SaaS 70 report really was an all-encompassing form of report relative to risk and controls represented by virtually any type of service organization. And actually that's not true. Couldn't be, I guess in many respects, further from the truth. With the change in the standards and moving forward, it's very important in regards to the change in the reporting standards, but we would suggest, and I think a professional guidance, that anytime you're considering using a service organization, as you heard from our excellent speakers today, there's a very rich ecosystem. Because of the roles played within that ecosystem, there's a very wide variety of risks that are represented by the services that are being delivered. So we would always suggest to a service organization, first and foremost, don't take any report at face value or assume that it covers all the risks that would be relevant to your business, to your governance needs, to your compliance needs, that you really step back and you understand what are my needs from a risk management perspective, and they're going to vary. In some cases, it may be the accuracy of debits and credits, and so that could be a report under SSAE 16 or SOC 1. In other cases, you may have privacy requirements because your cloud provider, be they a SaaS provider or be they a form of, let's just say as an infrastructure of a service, may have your privacy data, and therefore you would require a different form of report for that. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to say that the users of any of these services should think about risk, think about the controls that would be appropriate, and then make sure that you've got a report that is properly tuned to what your risk management and governance needs are.
Great. Thank you for that. Paul, question for you. What problems occur when migrating from one accounting app to another app, and what have you seen as practices that help companies ensure historical continuity, data integrity, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that comes up a lot. Obviously, you need to go through the process of mapping, mapping the accounts. I think one thing that we found is that often a lot of businesses will try and carry over too much data, too much historical data, multiple years worth of data, and typically that can slow down the implementation process. What we typically try and coach teams is basically bring over as much information as you need, and to get the implementation through quickly. And you may need to leave some historical data in your old system, but you can carry it forward. But there's something that doesn't make sense to carry every single piece of information. There's something that makes sense to just bring what you need and to expedite the migration.
Great, thank you. Glenn, to you, for larger companies, do cloud benefits scale upward? Is there a practical upper limit in terms of the size of organization for gaining benefit from cloud computing or software as a service that you've seen?
Yeah, great question, John. It basically depends on the complexity of the environment. I would say rule of thumb right now is folks that have less strict compliance requirements have an easier deployment option than folks that have a little bit more strict compliance requirements. We're seeing a lot of folks looking, for example, for infrastructure as a service in manufacturing, private companies, looking to move dev and test, exchange, those kind of apps. On the finance side, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. So then you're looking at a portion maybe of what the services are, not everything. So it really depends on the complexity of the environment as to how you approach it.
Gotcha. Thank you. Rob, what happens when the SaaS application is upgraded and you have customizations? Do you lose that? Do you have to touch the platform in order to make sure that stuff survives the upgrade? How does that work?
Yeah, in fact, that's a great question, something I think I kind of touched on in my discussion. So, for example, NetSuite upgrading and providing new functionality, I go to bed at night, I come in the next day, and that functionality is there. So, no, the SaaS vendors, they understand this. You're operating off of one code base. That code base is picking up all of those customizations that you're putting in and moving those forward with you. So typically, you will not only will you not lose those things will migrate forward, and they'll migrate forward with all the new functionality available to you without your team needing to do anything to take advantage of it.
Great. Thank you. Well, look, folks, we're drawing towards the end of our time, and I want to make sure that we're cognizant of the time of everyone on the phone. We have a lot of questions that I'm afraid we're not able to get to today, but I will work with the speakers today to see that we get to them either directly to you or online on Performative, where we may post some of them out in order for everyone to benefit from your great questions. I'd like to thank the speakers today: Glenn Simons of Sungard Availability Services, Paul Turner of NetSuite, Rob Hull of Adaptive Planning, and Dan Schrader of HAW for their time and insight. We're very fortunate to have such a great group of folks. And we would like to, again, thank all of the sponsors, which represent the speakers, as well as a few others. That's NetSuite, Adaptive Planning, Sungard, MyDials, Zora, and Habib, Erica, and Wynn. These are fantastic companies to look at if you are looking for cloud and SaaS solutions, or looking to find your way through and figure out what the right way is for your company to move. So whether it's consulting services or the actual technology platforms, we're very happy to have those folks with us today. I'd certainly like to thank the audience for your time today. We're all incredibly busy these days, and taking even just an hour out is difficult, so thank you so much for joining us. We will be sending soft copies of the presentation out to everyone. We will send CPE credits out to those who signed up for CPE credits. If you have any questions about CPE credit, you will see coming up on the screen the name and email of Tanya Walsh, who is our event manager, and it's at the bottom of the screen there. She'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. We will also be sending a survey out. We always like to do better the next time. And please help us know how we can do better, have different speakers, different content, whatever your ideas or thoughts are, we want to hear them. Also, if you would like help getting connected directly with any of the speakers who spoke today or any of the companies that sponsored, there's also a place in the survey to let us know about that. We'd be more than happy to help connect you to these great folks. So with that, I would like to bid everyone a wonderful rest of the week and great weekend, and we hope to see you either on performative.com or at our next event. Take care, everyone. Wonderful having you here.